Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Thoughts of a Rambling Mind. This is True History Revealed, right? So, today's topic I want to talk about is sex in the Bible and the story of Adam and Eve. The reason why I want to talk about the story of Adam and Eve is because, first of all, I think it's one of the most important stories of the Bible, and it's also one of my favorite stories of the Bible. I think the story explains a lot about history, and depending on which angle you look at it or you attack it from, you can get a lot of different meanings from it. So, let's break down Adam and Eve. And I'll do a small version of it. I won't go too deep into the story, but I will. Let's just talk about it, right? So, in the beginning, the earth was void. God creates the heavens and earth, takes a day to relax. Then, after he relaxes, he starts creating the animals of the beasts of the field and the beasts of the air and the beasts of the sea. After he creates all of the animals, he then creates man, Adam. Now, Adam was the ruler of all that he could see. God told him that he was the king of all that he could see. All the animals, all the plants, everything that was in the garden, he was the ruler of. And then God went back to heaven. Now, as Adam was wandering through the garden and taking a look at his kingdom and everything that he presided over, he noticed that all of the animals had a counterpart, right? They all had an associated mate. And Adam thought to himself that he was lonely and that he needed one as well. So he called out to God, God, God. God heard him and came down from heaven and came down to the Garden of Eden and said, Adam, what is it that I can help you with? Well, Adam said, I noticed the birds, the bees, the cows, and the trees, everybody has a mate. I'm alone. I would like a helpmeet. And this is what Adam called it. He said a helpmeet, because we are flesh and our flesh needs to be assisted. Now, if you're familiar with Christian church vernacular, you will understand that flesh represents sexual desires, carnal desires. But helpmeet is what Adam requested. The Lord granted that wish. He laid him down on the ground, grabbed some soil, grabbed some water, a little bit of breath, a little bit of wind, and plus Adam's rib, and created Eve. Now remember, what's very important to remember is that Adam was the king, the presider over all that was in the garden. And then Eve was created. And God said, you are now to preside over everything that's in this garden with the exception of that tree. If you partake of the fruit of the tree of the middle of the garden, which will give you knowledge of good and evil and everlasting life, he said that that tree was off limits to Adam. Now the question is, if God made Adam and Adam was the only human in the garden and he presided over everything, and then once God made Eve, there was now this creation that he no longer presided over, that he wasn't supposed to partake in, right? Where did this tree come from? When was it created? It's not described at all. It seems like when Eve was created, this tree was created right along with her. I digress. Let's keep going. After God tells them don't partake of the tree, Adam and Eve, God then leaves. Now, I say fruit of the tree because nowhere in the Bible is there a word apple, right? They say Adam ate the apple. That's actually a myth. The reality is that God speaks of fruit. And the reason why the Bible speaks of fruit is because, again, fruit in literary terms means reproduction, right? So again, God leaves the garden. leaves Adam and Eve to their own devices. They get to wandering around. Eve gets distracted. She's over in the garden off in the corner somewhere, and she runs into the serpent. Again, literary interpretation for a serpent is a phallic symbol. Phallic symbol represents a penis. But I digress. She wanders upon the serpent. The serpent tells her that she needs to partake of the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden. Eve says to the serpent, no, God said we ain't supposed to do that. Serpent said, God just trying to trick you. He don't want you to be like him. He don't want you to be like one of the gods, knowing good and evil and having everlasting life. Eve said, sounds interesting. And so she partook with the serpent. Well, after she partook with the serpent, the first thing she went and did was go run back to Adam and tell Adam, yo, look at what I found out. Look what I figured out. Look at what I was doing. Me and you should try it too. Now, if we've all lived a similar life, at least the life that I lived, there was a point in my life when I was naive to certain adult activities. And when one set of friends showed me at school what those adult activities was, the first thing I did was go back to my neighborhood and practice on the girls that were not at my school. But again, I digress because I don't want speculation. We only deal in the facts, but I'm giving you the speculation just so that a narrative is understood, that the facts are there, but also there's these other literary clues and signs that can lead you to the same conclusion. All right, so she runs to Adam and they partake of the fruit. The story skips forward to God coming back down to the garden. When God comes down to the garden, he sees all the animals, the trees and bees and everything, but he don't see Adam and Eve anywhere. So he calls out to them. He says, Adam, Eve, where y'all at? No answer. Calls out to them again. Adam, Eve, where y'all at? We right here, Lord, says Adam. God says, where? I don't see you. So when they come out covered in bushes and leaves. God says to them, why are you guys covered in bushes and leaves? They say to God, can't you see that we're naked? Now again, if you guys lived a similar life that I've lived, there was a point in my life where I had no problem walking around naked. I didn't even know that I was naked. I would just be walking around everywhere without no clothes on. Then I began to understand what the opposite sex was. I began to be interested in the opposite sex, and they began to be interested in me. And at that point, no longer was my mother allowed to come into the bathroom with me. No longer was I comfortable walking around naked anywhere. But I digress. It says, Lord, can't you see that we're naked? God says to them, you partook of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil and of everlasting life. At which point, God, disappointed in Adam and Eve, goes back to heaven amongst the heavenly hosts and has a conversation with the rest of the gods. And he says to them, what will we do now that they are like us, partaking of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil and everlasting life? Or when God they have the discussion, they come up with a plan, I'm assuming, because God goes down to the garden and he says to Eve, well, since you partook of this fruit, your punishment will be the pain of childbirth. Now, a lot of preachers like to say the pain of childbirth means that she would feel pain when having babies. Reality is that man did not create life. Only God's created life. And life is created through sex. So if only God's created life, and now Eve would have the ability to create life, then that's what he was talking about. He was talking about the pain of childbirth. She never had to worry about that before because she never had to worry about bearing a child because God created life. And now she, being like a God, will have to deal with the pain of creating life herself. Adam's punishment for taking this fruit was that he would toil for the rest of his days, working in the fields. So the punishment for partaking in this fruit was pregnancy and working to support your family. This is an amazing fruit. But I surmise that it wasn't a fruit at all. I surmise that this story is about sex. So, this is the story of sex in the Bible. And because we have sex, the Bible says we are gods. So, do me a favor next time you see a 5%er. Ask them if they know why we're gods. Don't just let them call us gods. Ask them to show you biblical evidence that we are gods, because the biblical evidence is that we all having sex and we can all create life. That makes us gods. Thoughts of a Rambling Mind. Please like, please subscribe, share. Thanks, I'm out.